Imagine being the most talked about golfer on the planet and having zero use for the tour that made you famous. No fear of getting cut. No fear of being benched. No fear of losing your seat at the table. Just leverage. Pure, uncomfortable, undeniable leverage. That is where Bryson DeChambeau sits right now, and it is making PGA Tour CEO Brian Rolapp very, very uncomfortable. Here's the situation. Sources close to the tour say conversations have been happening, quiet ones, the kind that don't show up on a schedule, the kind that only surface after someone talks. Bryson DeChambeau, still technically a LV golf player, has been in contact with PGA Tour officials since Masters Week. Reports even place him in business meetings with LV Golf CEO Scott O'Neill, trying to figure out his own next move before anyone else does. And here's the part that should make every golf fan lean in. Bryson isn't walking back into the PGA Tour on his knees. He isn't walking back like a man asking for forgiveness. He is walking back like a man who already knows he holds the leverage, and he is not afraid to make everyone wait while he uses it. Now here is where it gets interesting. Why does Bryson get to dictate terms? Because everything around him just changed, and it changed fast. Saudi Arabia's public investment fund is reportedly pulling its financial backing from LV Golf at the end of the 2026 season. $5 billion invested since 2022, and now the money is drying up. LV's own CEO is out there insisting the league is running full throttle, but nobody believes a league is full throttle when its funding source is heading for the exit. Governor Yasir Al-Rumayyan has already signaled a re-evaluation of investments, citing economic feasibility and regional conflicts. Translation: the people writing the checks are having second thoughts, and everyone in that locker room knows it. For Bryson, that means the clock is ticking on his current deal, and the PGA Tour just became his only real path forward. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. Bryson doesn't need the PGA Tour, not really, not anymore. His YouTube channel is closing in on 3 million subscribers. His Break 50 series has turned him into a personality that reaches audiences the PGA Tour could only dream of touching. Celebrities, athletes, influencers, all on his own terms, no network, no corporate sponsor standing between him and his camera. He built an entire business model that doesn't depend on anyone's approval. No media deal, no tour restriction, no executive telling him what he can and can't post. Just him, a camera, and an audience that keeps growing whether the PGA Tour exists or not. That is the scariest thing about Bryson DeChambeau right now. He doesn't need a fairway to make a living. He already proved it, so when PGA Tour CEO Brian Rolapp sat down to figure out the shape of a possible LIV reinstatement, he wasn't dealing with a desperate player begging for a lifeline. He was dealing with a businessman who happens to also be a two-time US Open champion. And businessmen don't negotiate from fear. They negotiate from position. Let's talk about Rolapp for a second, because understanding him is the key to understanding why this is such a collision course. Rolapp spent over 2 decades at the NFL, rising to chief media and business officer before taking over the PGA Tour in July 2025. He understands media rights. He understands broadcast deals. He understands how to package a product for maximum value in a world where a million things are competing for people's attention. That corporate instinct is exactly why he's been pushing a 2-track scheduling model, a championship series for the elite, and a second, lesser tier for everyone else. A plan that, by his own admission, was born out of the PGA Tour getting outmaneuvered. In his own words, LV's arrival maybe exposed some weaknesses in the PGA Tour and our model. That is about as close as a sitting CEO gets to publicly admitting his own organization got beaten at its own game. Now, here is the part that many fans didn't fully understand. Rolapp isn't hiding from this conversation. He has already been sitting down face-to-face with the players it concerns most. He met with tour stars ahead of the CJ Cup Byron Nelson to walk through the 2-track concept in detail. He held an all-players meeting in the clubhouse at TPC Craig Ranch. He presented the concept at the Truist Championship 2 weeks earlier. This isn't rumor. This is confirmed, on the record, happening in real time, meeting after meeting, room after room. And somewhere in the middle of all of it sits the biggest name LIV Golf still has, watching, calculating, deciding whether coming back is even worth his time. Here's my take. Rolapp has a real problem, and it isn't just scheduling logistics. It's trust. He is trying to convince a locker room full of players, many of whom left specifically because they felt unheard, undervalued, treated like interchangeable parts of a broadcast product, that this new structure is somehow different this time, that the man in the room now actually listens, and the loudest voice in that entire conversation isn't even fully back in the building yet. Because here's the line that should stop you in your tracks. When asked directly about a potential PGA Tour return, Bryson didn't credit Rolapp. He didn't credit the executives sitting across from him in every one of those meetings. He said it plainly, publicly, without hesitation. I don't even think it's Brian Rolapp or anybody like one of the top executives. It's really if the players want me back. Read that again. Bryson DeChambeau on the record told the entire golf world that the CEO's opinion is basically irrelevant to his decision. That the real gatekeepers are his peers, not the man running the tour, not the man holding the two-track model, not the man who flew in from the NFL to fix professional golf. That is not a throwaway comment made in passing. That is a direct challenge to Rolapp's authority, delivered in public, for every player, every executive, and every fan to hear. And Rolapp's response? Measured, almost too measured. When asked about a reinstatement pathway for Bryson and Jon Rahm, he said it would be premature to speculate, that he's just reading things as they come across like everyone else, that his focus is on making the PGA Tour better. Careful words. Corporate words. The kind of words you use when you don't want to commit to anything before you absolutely have to. But everyone in golf media noticed the same thing everyone always notices when a CEO talks like that. Rolapp wasn't ruling it out. He called himself interested in whatever makes the tour more competitive. Translation, the door is open, he knows it's open, and he is choosing his words carefully so that door never fully closes on him either. So why hasn't the deal happened yet? Because it's not that simple and it was never going to be. The Athletic reported Bryson is pursuing a re-signing bonus from LIV worth hundreds of millions before he'll even entertain closing that chapter for good. He is negotiating with the sinking ship while simultaneously keeping the lifeboat warm. Meanwhile, other LIV stars like Brooks Koepka were reportedly offered a return pathway with an expiration date, an olive branch that Rahm, Bryson, and Cam Smith all declined when it was first extended. Declined, not accepted out of desperation. Declined, on their own terms, because none of them felt the offer matched their value. That tells you something important, and it's the piece of this story most people are missing. This isn't a group of players begging to come home. This is a negotiation happening from a position most departed golfers in the history of this rivalry never had. LIV gave these players financial independence the old tour model never offered, and now that independence is outliving the league that created it. Now let's talk about what this actually means for the tour. Because this is bigger than one player's contract situation, this is about which version of professional golf survives the next decade. On one side, you have Brian Rolapp. He represents a vision of golf that is streamlined, broadcast-friendly, and built for a world where a million things are competing for people's attention every single day. He wants a product that's easy to sell to networks. He wants structure. He wants predictability. He wants a tour that runs like a business because to him it always was one. He just spent 20 years in a league that already figured that part out. On the other side, you have Bryson DeChambeau. He represents something the old model was never built for, a player who is also a media company, who built an audience the tour didn't create and can't fully control, and who has made it unmistakably clear that his loyalty isn't automatic, isn't guaranteed, and isn't for sale at whatever price the tour decides to offer. He's not anti-tour. He's not trying to burn it down. He is simply pro-leverage, and he has spent the last 2 years quietly building enough of it that he no longer has to ask nicely. Neither side is entirely wrong here. Rolapp is right that the sport needed to evolve. The old scheduling model was creaking under its own weight, and LIV proved beyond any argument that fans wanted something different, something faster, something built for the attention economy instead of against it. But Bryson is right too. The players are the product. Take away the stars, take away Bryson, take away Rahm, take away whoever else walks back through that door in the next 12 months, and the tour's best collection of golfers in the world argument gets a whole lot weaker, a whole lot faster than anyone in that boardroom wants to admit out loud. And here's the part making this so tense. The PGA Tour needs this reunification more than it is willing to admit publicly. LIV's collapse is a gift-wrapped opportunity to bring the sport's biggest names back under one roof, but only if the tour handles the negotiation with the humility it hasn't always shown in the past. One misstep, one arrogant comment about players needing to fall in line, one moment where the tour treats a returning superstar like just another name on a spreadsheet instead of the asset he actually is, and the whole reunification story flips overnight from a redemption arc into a full-blown PR disaster. Rolapp is walking a tightrope, and he knows it. He has to look strong enough to run a real organization with real rules, but flexible enough that Bryson, Rahm, and the rest of the LIV Exodus actually want to walk back through that door instead of just tolerating it. Meanwhile, Bryson has to walk his own tightrope too. Leverage is powerful, but it is not infinite, and it does not last forever just because you have it today. If LIV collapses entirely and the funding disappears faster than expected, some of that leverage evaporates with it. Waiting too long to cash in a winning hand is its own kind of risk. Here's the thing nobody's saying out loud yet. Every player watching this unfold, The ones still on the PGA Tour, the ones stuck in live limbo, the ones sitting on the sidelines wondering what their own next move should be. Every single one of them is taking notes on how this plays out. If Bryson gets his terms without groveling, without apologizing, without pretending the last few years never happened, that becomes the new blueprint. That becomes proof that the tour needs its stars more than its stars need the tour. And if Rolapp can find a way to hold the line while still making it work, that becomes his own proof of concept heading into a decade that's about to look nothing like the one before it. Here is my final take. Bryson DeChambeau spent the last 2 years building something the PGA Tour can't take away from him, no matter how this negotiation ends. That's the real story here. Not a single meeting, not a single quote, not a single headline. It's a fundamental shift in who actually holds the power in professional golf. Players used to need the tour to have a career. Right now, at least one of them is making the tour prove it still needs him more than he needs it. Whether or not this deal closes in the next few months, the leverage math has already changed permanently. And once players see that math work in someone else's favor, there's no putting that genie back in the bottle. Now I want to hear from you. Should the PGA Tour roll out the red carpet for Bryson and the other LV stars on their terms, or should returning players have to accept the tour's conditions without special treatment just like anyone else? Drop your take in the comments, and if you want to stay ahead of every twist in this story as it develops, hit that subscribe button right now, because this negotiation is nowhere near finished, and the next headline could drop at any moment.